Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for joining this, what I think, interesting webinar that is initiated by the security section of Euroalarm. A webinar that will focus on the overhaul of the EN 50131-1. Technology is evolving rapidly, and remote access, cloud processing, smart homes and smart buildings are becoming part of our connected world. And with that, these new technologies need to be allowed into the standards. It will ensure that going forwards, the EN 50131-1 will stay relevant for end users, alarm response, and insurance companies, and with that, also for our industry. My name is Martin Franke. I will be your host for today, and I will try to let the experts do the work as much as possible. When it comes to that, it's good to present you the program for this afternoon. We are very glad to have with us Peter Mita, President of Euroalarm, who will do the opening in a short while. And we have Marcus Link, Chair of TC79, who will dive into the importance of the European standardization for the security industry. And he will be followed by Nicolas Maurer, expert in TC79, Working Group 1, and Oscar Viejo, Chair of the Euroalarm Security Section. They will give you a more detailed insight into the overhaul, show you the roadmap, and give you an overview why this revision matters. Then we bring three panelists to the stage from different countries and different backgrounds who will shine their lights on the EN 50131-1. I'm happy to announce that we have as panelists Diego Torre of Alter Technology from Spain, Jon Kunz of the Swiss National Committee for Standardization, and Mark Ryder of the British Trade Association, BSIA. I think a very interesting program. Probably you will have some questions. My proposal is to put your questions in the chat so that we can answer them at the end of the webinar, or that you wait until the end where we have reserved some time for questions and answers. May I start the webinar by welcoming Peter Mita for his opening and introduction of Euroalarm. Peter, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Martin. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Peter Mita, and I am the president of Euroalarm. Euroalarm stands out as the primary European industry association dedicated to the fire safety and security sectors. Our mission encompasses providing valuable advice and expertise to various stakeholders, including industry professionals, policymakers, and standardization bodies. The significance of our sector is underscored by the substantial employment figure of 700,000 across European companies. This impressive workforce supports a robust market valued at 67 billion euros, with promising growth prospects. This reflects the increasing necessity for advanced fire and security solutions in a rapidly evolving landscape. Euroalarm's structure is deliberately designed to cater to the diverse needs of the industry. We operate through 4 specialized sections, each addressing distinct areas within the fire safety and security. The fire extinguishing section focuses on various technology for fire prevention and control, seeking to advance beyond traditional sprinklers. The fire section deals with electronic fire alarm systems encompassing sensors, control panels, and evacuation technologies. The service section emphasizes the importance of maintenance and the ongoing support necessary to ensure systems operate effectively. Last but not least, the security section focuses on intrusion protection, panic systems, access control, and video surveillance. Next one, please. As leaders in innovation, Euroalarm is committed to helping European companies leverage global market opportunities. We are dedicated to creating a unified European market while upholding high standards. Our objectives include navigating the challenges posed by digitalization, fostering sustainable innovation, and ensuring the industry is supported by a qualified workforce. Additionally, we recognize the importance of contributing to a greener Europe, viewing sustainability as an avenue for growth. By advocating for a diverse workforce, we aim at enhanced industry performance, driving continuous improvement and innovation in the fire safety and security sector. As we conclude this session, I would like to extend my heartfelt gratitude to the security section of Euroalarm. Your leadership in spearheading the efforts connected to the overhaul of EN 50131 Part 1 has been instrumental in ensuring we uphold our commitment to excellence in the industry. I also want to thank the service section for your unwavering support throughout this process. Your expertise and dedication have been vital in reinforcing the standards we strive for in our field. To those of you attending today who are not yet members, I encourage you to consider joining Euroalarm. Becoming a member not only enhances your connection to this vital industry, but also provides you with opportunities to contribute to our collective mission of innovation and safety. Together, we can advance our industry and create a safer future. Thank you all for your participation. I look forward to seeing many of you as part of our Euroalarm community. Thank you very much. And with that, I hand it over to Marcus. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Peter, for the introduction of Euroalarm. Before starting the journey into European standardization and later on into the 50131, I may just a few words about myself. So I'm actually making my money with my company, who is actually developing and manufacturing products for the security industry for over 50 years, and that's actually how I actually look, kind of. And I'm actually the chair since 2023 of the Technical Committee 79. What that actually means, I'm going to get onto later on. And I'm as well the convener of Working Group 2, which is going to develop standards for the detectors in this kind of area. And I'm as well a member of of Working Group 1, which is now doing the revision of the 50131-1. So maybe could I have the first slide, please? I think it's very important to may understand what standardization actually means, why it is important and for Europe actually to have a standardization, because each of our markets, of the national markets, have some kind of small size, and I think it's important that we actually bring things actually together to have one kind of huge market in Europe, and that we have a certain kind of level and amount of standards which are going to fulfill the European requirements. First of all, it's going to be about the economic benefits. That's actually to facilitate trade. That actually means reduce costs and to promote cross-border commerce. Next one is going to be boost growth and to contribute significantly to the EU GDP. Then harmonization is going to be about market access. It's going to be ensure that we have a product compatibility and maybe as well service compatibility across the European Union and European market, and that we have some kind of regulatory compliance, simplifying adherence to the EU rules. Safety and quality reliability is important to enhance actually these kind of safety and quality to improve product performance and consumer protection to a certain extent, and to promote sustainability and to support environmental initiatives, which are actually quite important these days and as well in the future. And as well to provide reliability, there's actually only one chance, especially in the security industry, that if we're going to detect an alarm in case of a hazard, if that's going to happen, that this actually needs reliable systems, and that's actually some kind of prerequisite to work in this kind of market. And then world is going to move on. That actually means that we need to be innovative and to be competitiveness actually in the European market, but as well in the world market. We need to drive innovation. We need to codify best practices and new technologies. We need to have maybe some kind of global influence to position the EU as a leader in the standard setting and safeguard European interests to protect the European society and markets. For example, we have this kind of GDPR, and more important, which is going to come up, is the cybersecurity issues, where certain kind of regulations, Cyber Resilience Act, and so on, are going to come up and actually going to protect our kind of personal credentials. Next one is that we have some kind of consumer and market benefits which are important to be addressed by European standardization. That's interconnection, interoperability, to allow actually to connect and interoperate segments, systems, and products quite easily, and to have a greater choice to actually ensure high quality, safe products for consumers. Next slide, please. So now a bit about SENELEC itself. SENELEC actually, the full name is going to be European Committee for Electronic Technical Standardization. It's actually one of the three major pillars for European standardization, alongside with the CEN and the ETSI. Actually, SENELEC is had been established in 1973, and it's actually having 34 European countries which are actually part of the SENELEC standardization body. Main functions are actually to develop European standards, ENs, for electrotechnical products and systems, harmonize actually national electrotechnical standards across Europe, and to support the EU legislation and policies in the electrotechnical sector. So relevance is actually to facilitate the trade in the single European market, enhance safety and performance of electrical products, and to promote innovation and competitiveness in the electrotechnical industry. It actually has a very close collaboration with the IEC, especially with the Technical Committee 79 of IEC, which is going to mirror these kind of things at the worldwide level. And it actually cooperates with CEN and ETSI on policy and technical matters. The Technical Committee 79 actually is very much focused on maintaining and developing standards for detection, alarm, and monitoring systems, which are designed to protect people and properties. Actually, it creates standards for various types of security systems, addressed and structured by independent working groups. That's including intrusion and hold-up alarm systems, social alarm systems, combined alarm systems, parameter protection system, and it's actually going to mirror access control and video surveillance systems, formerly known as CCTV, which are actually handled at IEC level. In addition, actually, it's addressing cybersecurity aspects of connected alarm systems through a dedicated working group, which is Working Group 17. And it's actually preparing standards to cover the terminology, technical characteristics, performance criteria, reliable operation, installation, maintenance, testing procedures for detection, monitoring, recording and alarm triggering, communication protocols for alarm transmission to actually get these alarms, which have been created locally, out to the world. Next slide, please. And as such, the 5131 is actually one part of which it actually belongs to the Technical Committee 79. The history of 5131-1 was and is still a very robust framework in the INHAS world since 25 to 30 years. It has actually received 3 amendments during that time, so we should be really thankful to the previous generation, which has put this thing together wisely and maintained it properly over time. However, things are actually, the future is moving on, and that's actually our next bullet point. As the world risks requirements and technology have evolved, changed, a revision is more than necessary to address the needs from today, tomorrow, and in the upcoming future. The next bullet point, the impact, actually, this will actually impact all related standards, or depending how close they are actually and how close they are connected to the 53131-1, specifically for working group 3, working group 2, and so on. So everything which is actually fall under this kind of framework. It still need to be worked out, and that's still some kind of challenge we will actually reach, and we need to kind of address that we have some kind of transition period where we move from the existing one to a future kind of, so for the next version. And it is not clear, very clear, or quite clear yet how to actually address this kind of challenge. That's need to be sorted out in the near-term future, hopefully. And for the next point, we should not bring out some kind of new version which is not backward compatible, because we have a huge market over here in Europe, and we need to ensure that to protect the investments, to actually be backward compatible for the processes, the existing know-how which is in the market, and still to address properly the current and the upcoming risks here. Next slide, please. So that actually means that there will be some kinds of goals for the next revised version. And therefore, the future version actually shall mainly focus on processes and systems and risk approaches. It will deliver a more generic approach as it is today, and less technology focused and focus on details. Details will be actually moved to the relevant product standards of the years of this standard. It will be open for new technologies, needs and risks, for example, for detection, kind of more generic detection principles, video systems, cloud, AI, communication means, and so on. That's one of the tasks to allow for this kind of openness, and it will allow to connect other segments under certain conditions to increase detection speed, to reduce fault alarms and optimize verifications, and are able to deal with probabilities, which is not the case today. And in addition, it has to address new risks like cyber and potential vulnerabilities, and still it must be robust and resilient as it is today. The challenge I mentioned already beforehand is to reach these goals will be a very tremendous task, and will bear some kind of risks like the backward compatibility, and therefore the revision need to be processed carefully and wisely. But actually, I'm quite sure that the team which are working on this, as I'm as well one member of this kind of team, so I know the people very well. I'm actually very confident that they really understand the framework and the needs of the past for the future, and the underlying processes to revise the 5131, and I'm more than confident that this will be achieved over the next couple of months and years. So, but now enough time. It's enough actually about the on a very high level. I think now it's actually time to move forward to get into the details. And I'd like to thank you for your time, and yeah, I'd like to move forward to the next topic on the agenda. Thanks.
Okay, thank you, Marcus. For the next presentation, I would like to invite Oscar Viejo and Nicolas Maurer to the stage. Gentlemen, the floor is yours.
Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you, Marcus, for your nice words. We, Oscar and me, will now, as experts of the WG1, present the key facts and give an outlook of the advantages of this overhaul of the EN 50131-1. Next slide, please. In order to give you an overview of this project and to see where we come from and where it goes, I would like to show this roadmap to you, which actually explains the steps we actually passed already and which are in front of us. the overall already started 2016 with the first conceptual work in the working group and discussions about the future of EN. But during the first years of the revision process, we had to overcome a number of obstacles. The working group couldn't achieve a common understanding of the scope of the revised standard and its application. So there was a discussion mainly about, is the system a set of components, or do we define it as an installed system? So there have been long debates about these topics. And finally, 2020, Erlang came up with the memorandum in collaboration with the several ANSIs, national committees, to clarify the situation and to set out the project goals. Then, based on that, we actually could already start with some drafting ideas. But the next obstacle came, and that was the pandemic. We faced, or every one of us faced this pandemic time, but for the standardization work, it was really hard to actually follow the debates and also to acquire a high output in the meetings because we couldn't meet face-to-face. So this had a big influence on our work. And then finally, 2022, with the new approach of the standardization process, we could speed up the work again. So the new approach was actually organized around Erlang members, which formed a drafting group. And thanks to Benoit Stockerbrock's strong commitment to this project and also an engaged team of Erlang members, we achieved a high drafting output in the following years and got back on track with WG1. And so this year, 2024, we already began with the liaison meetings with the working group 2 and 3. So we shared our drafts and could achieve a common understanding of this overhaul with those 2 working groups. And the latest development is actually the at the general meeting of TC79 in Vienna, a new ad hoc group has been established, which has the task to synchronize between each relevant working group of this revision regard to the system standard and to ensure aligned content and timelines of all 5131 series standards. And the next stage on our roadmap is next year we will be the first secretarial inquiry, which will be available for Senelec members as a draft to see actually what's about of this revision. Next slide, please. So the memo Erlang came up with 2020 actually showed significant changes coming to the ANHNS systems. There is development of technology on the one side. On the other side, there is also end user requirements which change dramatically and market demands. You can see here in bold the symbols of the situation we had when the standard was first written, and then the other symbols which came additionally during the past years. And in green, you can see the idea of the situation we can have when the standard will be published later in the future. So on the detection part, the main focus on intrusion and holdup has been expanded to include video surveillance and access control, and also coexistence with other domestic life systems like life safety, assisted living, or others. They play an important role in the future. On the control part, we can see that driven by those significant changes, development of today's functional isolated system is expected and demanded of everyone. So with the introduction of cloud-based functionality, the standard also has to address new technologies and risks such as cybersecurity and artificial intelligence. And on the action part, the interfaces to third-party systems are already well established in systems, but looking in the future, we with the facing of shortage of professional staff in our sector, this our services are unable to meet market demands somehow with solely human workforce. Consequently, the standard must also address the emerging concept of drones and robots for this part. The conclusion is the situation the standard must take into account is very different than back in 2000 when it was first written. Next slide, please. So the current standard actually was developed based on technologies of the 20th century and is only partially suitable for existing products like mobile devices, cloud services, or machine learning. I can give you an example like national regulations, they have attempted to address the shortfalls of actual standardization, which has been generated during the years by introducing national certification schemes. And however, these national deviations, which now are in place, is contrary to the industry's request for a single European market. And furthermore, the situation leads to an increase in market entry barriers. So this is the outcome of this situation we have generated while the standard was not updated since 2000. The conclusion is, in the current situation, there are no guidelines for the current state of technology, and innovation is harmed by the standard at the moment. So, next slide, please. So we had actually defined the project goals also in the other group and the working group 1, which lead us or guide us during this overhaul. So the first goal is addressing the existing problem in the standardization process because it's long or low speed of, let's say, producing new standards, actually to keep up pace with the technological changes. We can address this in order to by building a core standard that integrates existing functions and is open for extensions in the future, either technological or living requirements. So those living requirements, they are user-friendly, they are comprehensive, and they have clear guide rails. Then secondly, base standards on principles and testable requirements that can be assessed, compared, or certified without compromise on the level of security. Second goal is we will allow new technologies. This will be done first. The objective is to neutralize so-called technological solutions, whether for existing or new functions, by defining the principles and not the solution itself. And second, the availability of clear guide rails will facilitate the use of cloud-based technologies, thereby enhancing the service approach of alarm system to installers and users, and widen the scope to include cloud and connected home-based products. And the third goal is to achieve more flexibility, and this is achieved by move towards common basic functions and offer expandable and flexible complementary requirements in the system standards and in the product standards. Next slide, please. So there are 5 fundamental principles which have been highlighted so far in our work, which guide us during this revision process. I would like to give you a short idea what are those fundamentals and the influence of those fundamentals or the outcomes of those fundamentals will then Oscar present you in the next slide. So the first fundamental is on the scope. The intrusion and hold-up system is intended for professional installation, not for do-it-yourself market. And the system itself is a set of components, regardless if it's a particular installation. And the work which have been done by WG1 so far for the external perimeter security systems runs parallel. So this is no obstacle for the revision. So this will be in parallel with another group, and we will then be sure that we can align this work together with the AM 5131-1. The fundamental on a more future-proof standard is actually divided in 3 topics. So we would like to allow for detectors not covered by a technology-specific standard, we would like to allow them, so provided compliance with requirements from a generic detector standard, which will be produced by the WG2, and allow for cloud-based systems, provided compliance with requirements to be set. The third one is interfacing with other system is allowed when it does not jeopardize the correct function of the intrusion and hold-up system. So this fundamental is in place so far in the system standard, and now with the future -3, which will be under vote in next year, we will then go this path along also with the -3. On the grading system, for sure, we will keep on, or we will try to keep all the grading system we have so far, but the grading tends to be too rigid at the moment in the current standard. So we will try to achieve a higher flexibility. By example, a lower grade can be assessed to a part of the supervised premises. This means the combination of grading should be possible in the future. Next slide, please. And the final 2 fundamentals they are first on the requirements themselves. In the system standard, we address goals to achieve as principles. The product requirements itself, they should move to the appropriate product standard. And again, this means the product standards, they have then living requirements, which should cover just those product requirements and which can be updated regularly for new products. And other goal is describe expected performance and avoid as much as possible description of means to achieve it. So we will then really give clear guidance to all the product standard working groups to how they can achieve those principles in order that they can write comprehensive and robust requirements. The fourth one is the requirement should address the essential function of the system reliability, and the robustness and resilience. So those are the main topics which then will be addressed in the system standard. And also important to know is the working group 1 considers to actually absorb the actual standard about verification, which is 51V1-9, and also the setting-unsetting methods -12 to the system standard itself. So this will move to the system standard if possible, and then give a comprehensive standard about the INHS system. And on the structure, we define so far that this future structure will be based on the functional approach, and how this will be achieved will be explained by my colleague in follow. And also to not incorporate the test procedures, they are part of the product standard. So all the tests defined how to actually certify a product will be described in the product standards. So those are the 5 fundamentals, and now my colleague will explain you how the actual work and how this actually fits together in the current drafts. Please.
So good afternoon, everyone. As Nicolas said, one of the fundamentals of the revision of the standard is to build it following the different functions of the system. So let me guide you through that concept using the image that now you have in the screen. The big rectangle that you can see there shows where the borders of the intrusion and hold-up alarm system are. So inside that rectangle, you can see the different functions of the system, such as the power supply, the tamper detection, intrusion detection, indicating, notification, and so on. We have some other elements that are outside the systems and that provide inputs to the alarm system or receive outputs of the alarm system. So if we go to the left side of the diagram, there you can see some of the inputs that the alarm system is receiving, such as a tamper attempt. When there is a tamper attempt in the system, that attempt is triggering the tamper detection function. Another example is when we have one person in the protected premises that is pressing a button, he can trigger the hold-up detection function. Or even we could have some person operating the system remotely. Once it has been authenticated and authorized by the system, it has the capability to control the system. We have other functions that are constantly running in the system, such as the fault detection functions. And on the right side of the image, you have also some functions that are providing outputs to the outer world, such as the indicating function that is meant to inform users of the system, or the notification function that is meant to inform entities different than users. For instance, operators in an alarm receiving center. On the top part of the diagram, you see that we have also drawn some interconnections. Interconnections are the way to connect the different functions in the system. We can have specific interconnections, like the connections that we establish between a central unit or a keypad, but we could also have non-specific interconnections, like the connections that we will use for cloud processing. That is something that is meant to be allowed in the standard. An interconnection that cannot happen without any requirement, and that's the reason for having an additional function that you see in the screen. That is the one that describes the interconnection security and monitoring. As Nicolas has explained before, the idea is to have general requirements for these functions of the system and to take the testable requirements to the product standards that we will discuss a little bit later. Next one, please. As you can imagine, during the discussion and the deep revision of the standard, we are having many challenges in front of us, and we are having many discussions. This is not a comprehensive list. The list is much, much longer than the one that you now see in the screen. These are just examples to give you an idea of what are the main topics that have been and are being discussed in the working group. The first one is the debate on the alarm system processing function. If I go back to the example that I used before with the hold-up detection, our first idea is to have a hold-up detection function, then a processing function in the middle that gave an output to the notification function to send events to the monitoring station. At the end of the day, we realized that would make the standard complex and difficult to understand for all the stakeholders. So we decided to keep it simple and to spread all the processing requirements that we have gathered into the different functions of the system. Another example is the discussion about the definition of notification and indication. Here, the approach that we have taken is also in the sake of clarity for all the people that will read the standard. And our goal has been to identify what is the purpose of that information going out of the system and who is the recipient of that information. Taking that into account, we have considered that indications, as I said before, are meant for users of the system, and notification are meant for other entities different than the users of the system. That could be neighbors around the protected premises, or could be operators in the monitoring station. We are also aiming here for flexibility. For instance, thinking if a warning device could only not be used just for notification, but also for indication purposes, optionally. The third bullet in the screen is the grading. Of course, we are very aware of the importance of the grading classification of the system, and that is for sure going to stay in the revision of the standard. But we are thinking of ways to allow for flexibility, such as having different gradings in different partitions of a system, or also giving the opportunity to reach a higher grade using components that have a lower one, providing they are installed in the right way. Of course, in our minds, there is always the adaptability to future technological developments, and we try to write requirements being agnostic in general to technologies or to topologies, so that the innovation that is going to come to the market is still in the scope of this standard, and this revision lasts for a long time, even considering all the innovation that is coming to the market. And finally, interoperability is also in our minds. We are very well aware that there are many systems that are combined in the installations in the customer premises, so allowing for interoperability is also one of the key goals of the revision of the standard. Next one, please. In the next 2 slides, I would like to share you, first of all, which are the impacts of the revision of the standard, and second and most important, what are we doing to mitigate those impacts? As you can imagine, if we review the -1 standard, that is the system standard for alarm and hold up alarm systems, there are many other standards that will also will need to be reviewed. We have said that the plan is to move testable requirements to the product standards. So as you can imagine, the EN 50131 series is affected. We are going to affect the -6 standard for the power supply, the -4 for warning devices, or the -3 for control and indicating equipment, to give some examples. But not only the 50131 series, also the 50136 series that deals with transmission from the system to the outer world, let's say, but also connections coming from the outside world to the alarm system. And on top of that, as Nicolas has mentioned before, we have a couple of technical specifications that today take care of verification and setting and unsetting procedures that we are analyzing and that we are thinking of incorporating to the final version of the standard. Next slide, please. As I have just said, there is a big impact in many other standards. We are very aware of that impact, and the message that I want to give to you here is that we are working for a smooth transition. First of all, continuity and consistency is key. And let me use the picture that you see in the right side of the slide. The idea is that we are building a solid bridge that should be able to connect the current, a bit outdated world to the new one that allows for new technologies. We want to get rid of all these gray areas that we have today, of all the difficulties when certifying some innovative solutions, and be able to use them, to certify them, and to prove that they comply with requirements. The idea behind that bridge is that we are not killing the current certified products. Both of them should coexist with the new standard. The new standard does not have the intention of making certification difficult for the current products, but allowing the coexistence of new certified products with the current ones. To achieve that, of course, consultations and collaborations are needed. We have seen the list of standards impacted by the revision, and it's clear that we need to have discussions and agreements with all the experts that take care of those standards, and that we have to prepare a gradual transition between the current situation and the future one. In that sense, is very important to highlight what Nicolas explained before. That is, in the last plenary meeting of the technical of our technical group, TC79, it was agreed to set up an ad hoc group, which goals are basically this: to assure that we have a collaboration between all the different stakeholders, and we prepare a very good and gradual transition between the two worlds that you see in that picture. At the end of the day, what we expect to have is long-term benefits that will outweigh the inconveniences that we might see today, because we will be able to issue a future-proof standard. Next slide, please. This is the last one of our presentation. The idea here is to summarize, to wrap up what we have presented during this afternoon. Why is the revision important? Why does it matter? First of all, and I'm going to emphasize some of the concepts that we have already shared with you during the presentation. First of all, we need to adopt the technological advancements that are coming to the market. We need to ensure that alarm systems are up to date with the current capabilities. Second, we need to be future-proof. We need to accommodate innovation that still we don't know. So what we do is to be as technology as not agnostic as possible, to give a space for these new technologies to be in the scope of the final version of the standard. We will also get enhanced security. Cybersecurity will be incorporated into the system's requirements. Sorry. Reliability and resilience is going to be key also, as we have seen the requirements of the system functions are focused on the assurance of both reliability and resilience. And the final goal is to have compliance and professionalism, so that systems are designed, are installed according to the last best practices. Cool. So that was all from my side. Martin.
Thank you, Oscar. Thank you, Nicolas. Thank you for your explanation why the revision matters. It's time to turn to our panel to hear what they have to say. Let me start, Mark, with you, if you agree, as representative of the UK National Trade Association, BSIA. The UK currently makes a specific use of the system standard. Could you explain that a little bit more?
Yes, good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for attending the webinar. Yeah, my name is Mark Ryder. I'm the technical manager of the BSIA. Could you go on to the next slide, please? Thank you. So this is the current sort of UK topology, if you like, with many standards involved. Obviously, we're dealing a lot with legacy here over the years. So we got the suite of European standards, obviously EN 50131 suite of standards. We've got the transmission standards, the 50136 suite, etc. And we also have some British standard documents in the UK on commissioning, maintenance and remote support of the installation, intruder alarms and hold up confirmed alarm standard BS 8243. Management of false alarms is another British standard for the installers. And of course, we have the alarm receiving center standards as well. There's an older standard BS 5979, and of course BS EN 50518, for example. Now, along with all these, we have a number of British standards, and some of these date back to the 1970s. Obviously, quite a few legacy standards that still actually exist today. I'm not saying they all exist, but the majority on that list exist today. And they will go through for a systematic review, and in no doubt in time will be withdrawn at some stage. But a lot of these still exist actually today, as I say, from the 1970s to 1980s as British standards that still apply to some of the technologies used many years ago and still on installations as we speak today. And what we've done amongst all these standards, we've got what we call a published document, a PD 1262 2017 document, which cites all these standards, and basically it's currently utilized. It's a scheme for the application of European standards for intrusion hold-up alarm systems, and it offers guidance basically to enable users, consultants, insurance companies who specify systems, and security companies who install systems. So it offers guidance to these various stakeholders on the installation of a system and the grading of a system, if you like, and guidance on various points of the EN standards, etc. So it's all encompassed, as I say, to PD 1262. And then this is cited in our National Police Policy Standard. It's called NPCC, National Police Chief Commissioner Standard Policy. And within the police force policy, they will respond to intruder alarms and hold-up systems, for example, if the installation adheres to all these standards by the installing company, who must also belong to some sort of inspectorate. We have some inspectorates in the UK called NSI and SSIB, who inspect and audit the installation companies to make sure they're installing the product to the relevant standards and to a certain level, obviously. So that's how we actually currently work today. The police force themselves, they produce and have a database of unique reference numbers for every site in the country that requires police response from the alarm receiving centre. Okay, so that's where we are today. Thank you.
Okay, and how will that change with the revised standard, Mark?
Yeah, I think, as I say, I mentioned there's many standards here and a lot of legacy ones. I think one of the key points is that there'll be consolidation, which is good news, of a lot of these old and legacy standards. A more focused installation standard, I would say. And I think, as mentioned in the presentation already, it's good news to maybe have a common detector standard as well, rather than several detector standards for different types of technology. If we can combine that into one standard, that's going to help everybody, and hopefully reduce testing time and costs for manufacturers as well.
Okay.
So just to go back as well to some of the other things that's been mentioned in the presentation, just to sort of reiterate as well on this question about the standard itself. The aim is to obviously to contain as few requirements as possible with the approach less is more. Filter out any requirements that can be specified in product standards. Emphasize requirements for effectiveness, robustness, reliability, and resilience. And define requirements into functions, detect, control, processing, indication, as mentioned there, notification. So as Oscar, I think, mentioned, I'll just reiterate again, indication could be some information available to a user of the system only, whereas a notification is defined as information that's available to any third party. So it could be an external sounder that's been triggered, and the neighbours could be alerted, or something walking by the premises could be alerted. That's a notification, effectively, not an indication. And I think a couple more on those. We also need to cater still for the boxes on the wall, so to speak, as well as obviously the cyber and cloud technology alike within the standards themselves.
Okay, thank you. You represent BSIA, National Trade Association of Security Industry. What are the benefits that you can foresee from the new version as presented today?
Yeah, most definitely future-proofing, technology agnostic, open to innovation and technologies for the future. Guidance on interaction with other systems, I think that's key as well for integrated type systems, but of course without jeopardizing obviously the correct function of the intruder system and hold up system. For example, integration with access control, video security systems, etc., etc.
Okay.
Sorry, there's a bit more. Yeah, sorry. Performance related outcomes and certainty. So rather than dictating or specifying how something should be achieved in the standard, we're looking at basically, the fact is you need to detect a human in some way, and at some sort of percentage level to be determined that it's actually certainly a human. So it could be detection of a human at 95%, for example, could be a principle in the standard, rather than specify how you actually achieve that as a manufacturer. And very quickly, the possibility of a generic detector standard, we mentioned that, and a reduction in the quantity of tests, of course, for manufacturers. And again, cyber resilience guidelines and references, and of course, yet again, consolidation of old and legacy standards. I think that's the key benefits. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, Mark. Jan, if I may, you will represent a National Committee for Standardization, the Swiss National Committee for Standardization. With that perspective, what are the benefits that you can foresee from the new version as presented today?
Well, having had already 3 persons mention that, it makes it maybe a little difficult to come out with new ones, so I won't. I think, honestly said, the most important is actualizing the norm, and more importantly, making it future-proof. The whole concept that was just mentioned, technology agnostic, as well as the integration to different systems than what has been mentioned so far, since the actual document is already quite old. So I think those would be the main benefits that we see. For us, the interest is we do have quite a few, like many of your countries or the other countries have manufacturing companies, and for us, keeping the costs or avoiding unnecessary costs would be better said, from having different countries doing their own country-specific norms is of major interest to us.
Not asking for the benefits, then asking for the challenges, Jan. What do you think from this perspective? You mentioned already a couple of things.
No, there are quite a few challenges. I think some of them were mentioned, but if I would take the 2 major ones, is making it open enough to be future-proof. And on the other side, and maybe that's a difficulty, each one of the countries come with what they've been working on and trying not to overload it with the country-specific requirements, because I think that will be one of two things: unmanageable, and second, it will be difficult to pass.
Okay. How do you see the future of the work on the 5131 standards?
Honestly, I think I'm quite excited when I hear all of these presentations, in the sense that already most of what we're looking for is being done with the -1, meaning that it is the beginning of working on all of the rest of the norms in 50131, which I think is also important. So I think for us, getting that family updated required a strong base, and I think the work that I've seen so far looks quite promising going down that path.
Okay. Then let's switch to Spain. Diego Torres, representing a certification body in Spain. The Spanish legislation for security refers to standards. Can you explain a little bit?
Yes, thank you, Martin. In Spain, there is the Ministerial Law 316 of 2011 that states that the components of the burglar alarm system, as well as the access control system connected to an alarm receiving center, shall be certified by an accredited body against the EN 5131 standard series. The motivation of this decision is to reduce the number of false alarms reaching the police and to improve the reliability of the systems. A similar law exists in Portugal, for example, and these laws are in place with other legislative framework that regulates the private security. One interesting fact about this law's framework is that it defines the security grade of the different installations, for example, the banks, the houses, and so on, and all the critical facilities, as you may know, military, nuclear plants, and so on, belong to the security grade 4. But as you all may know, the grade of the system is defined by the minimum grade of the component part of it. And today, there is no available detector in the market certified for security grade 4. And this means that when a manufacturer starts to produce grade 4 detectors, these installations will have the obligation to replace the current detectors with those existing. And it sounds like an opportunity for manufacturers, I think.
Okay. Do you have national standards on intrusion and hold-up alarm systems in addition to the European ones, and in particular, which installation guidelines are in use?
We don't have national standards in this field. European standards are applicable, and the only one existing installation guideline for the intrusion alarm systems is the technical specification 5131-7, which addresses the design, installation, operation, and maintenance of the intrusion alarm systems. This presents some disadvantages because this standard do not cover the entire range of possible products operating in the alarm systems nowadays, like, for example, hold-up trigger devices or seismic detectors on other technologies. And at the same time, the certification is only mandatory when the product fits in the scope of one specific product standard of the EN 5131 series. So this implies that there might be components that have not been assessed either in a testing laboratory or by a certification body. That's why a generic standard for detectors, for instance, should be developed. And I mean a standard and not technical specification for this purpose.
Okay. You represent the testing laboratory and the certification body. With that perspective, what are the benefits and challenges that you can foresee from the new version as it is presented today?
Yeah, the trend we see among the manufacturers is to transfer part of the alarm system processing to the cloud, and the use of non-EAS interfaces play a much more important role. This, despite it is the state of the art, doesn't fit with the current state of standardization, as the systems are required to comply with all the requirements without the use of external elements not part of the intrusion alarm system, right? So furthermore, it is very common they're willing to implement some access level just remotely, and in this scenario also requires adapting the cybersecurity requirements applicable to those connections. I think that also the release 5131-1 standard addresses these challenges. And besides, the current version of the EN 5131 standard states too many requirements for the product, as you have mentioned before, for the contraindicated equipment, the power supply, and these requirements should be implemented in the specific product standards, while the general requirements standards should describe the expected performance, as Nicolas mentioned during his presentation. This will allow the inclusion of new detection technologies as well. Moreover, according to the European standardization strategy, this development will support the neutrality principle as well as the support to innovations. I see a large transition period because this will be necessary because many product standards refer to the 5131-1 standard without date, and it is likely that this standard requires a suitable revision that fits for the new versions. And finally, the current requirements of power supply and wireless interconnections for grade 4 components should be revised as well, because in the practice, it causes that it is impractical, the development of product with this classification, combining wireless and grade 4.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm. You're welcome.
I would like to switch over to the questions and answers. I do have some questions, yet no answers, so I can distribute them as I like. I think first one for Oscar and Nicolas. You may decide yourself which of you will answer the question. Allowing cloud-based processing for the alarm systems raises the question of unavailability of the connections to the cloud. What kind of guardrails do you envisage to keep the reliability of the system? Oscar, you are on mute. That could be helpful because then Nicolas can...
Sorry. I said that I could take it if you want.
Yeah.
When we saw the diagram with the different functions and the interconnection, we could see that there is in the one of the functions of the system is the one that deals with the interconnection security and monitoring. So it's clear that the use of non-specific interconnections will be allowed, but of course some requirements will be set there to avoid that any cloud connection is valid. We are also discussing about what a degraded mode of the system is, in the sense of having enough capabilities in the system itself, even if the connection to the cloud is no longer available for some reason. So that is something that is being discussed with these two key concepts. The first one is we want to allow the connectivity to the cloud for processing or for other functions. But of course, there will be requirements on top of that, and not everything will be done in the cloud. We need to secure that some of the functions stay in the components that are installed in the protected premises.
Okay, then I do also have a question for Nicolas, so that he doesn't feel worse about it. The journey of the overhaul, as you presented, Nicolas, started 8 years back. More significantly started in 2020. The work is not finalized yet for people who are not involved in standardization, this picture can be seen as not very efficient, very lengthy, perhaps discouraging. What would you answer to them? How do you explain that the process takes so long? And do you think that the consensus-based approach that is today fundamental should be reconsidered for a faster development?
Yeah, so I already tried when presenting the roadmap to actually highlight which obstacle we had to pass during the revision. And for me also, yeah, because I'm quite a young member of this working group, I'm not really an expert. I started 2020 with the work on the revision as a visitor, and then 2022 I was involved as an expert. I think it's very important to understand that standardization work is not really it's not comparable to a development of a product. So we are not, let's say, driven by direct optimized process for agile development. And we know already everywhere in the research and development department that agile development is key for a fast time to market. And we think we can now actually speed up this process because the standardization process really stick to rules and to schemes which are mandatory. But we can speed up this process with this ad hoc group we formed within Overhaul, because we established a new way of doing, like, in sprints, the drafts, and then we can actually directly review those drafts within the working group 1 meetings, which take place 4 times a year. And so we have a direct feedbacks on drafts, which then can be again reworked for the next meeting. So with this new approach, we think we can speed up the work within WG1 very much. And I'm looking forward to also people which think it's never ending, that we can present them a draft within next year. And maybe people who are not involved in the center, like, they can be sure that they will have a draft, or let's say a final paper on the vote within a really nice time. So which helps them to prepare for the certification of their products.
Okay, thank you, Nicolas. One more for Marcus. He's still with us, yes. And that is, I think, more ahead of time. The new EN 5131-1 will initiate a long transition period due to the many other parts of the series to be adapted. What are the risks TC79 can anticipate with this transition, Marcus?
Yeah, I think I mentioned it earlier on. I think that will be some kind of challenge we have to come through. The risk, one of the risks is actually that there is some kind of overlapping time usually given if we come up with a new kind of standard, with a revised version. And in this transition period, from the overlap, or during this kind of overlap time, which is not too long, it will be probably difficult to update all the other standards which are actually pointing to the 5131-1. And so we need get our actually heads together. If we could get some kind of extension for overlapping period, so that we're not going to withdraw the old 5131 version, while the new is not actually attached to all the existing kind of standards which need to be reworked. And so those kind of things we need to work out how we can actually achieve this. And the number of discussions going on currently, how to actually going to address this kind of risk. Actually, we would like to avoid that we have a new kind of standard, and that with at one point in time, or we have systems which are actually have no underlying standard anymore because the old one had been withdrawn, and all the underlying standard like the 5131-2-2, -2-3, -2-4 or maybe the 51.3 are not already adjusted to meet the 51.1 requirements of the new version. And so there's still some kind of work which need to be addressed. And maybe I would like to come back to a couple of points Nicholas actually mentioned. If we have a standard like the 51.1 for 25 to 30 years in the market, and the installers, the planners, the manufacturers, and all those kind of things, if the whole framework is going to be there, it takes a long time to find a consensus between the different kind of parties, between different countries who actually have been with the current kind of version living that long time, and as well to come up with the backward compatibility which is necessary. And there had been a lot of discussions how to achieve this, and right now I really get the feeling that we are on track and hopefully actually can achieve things in a much quicker, much faster pace and much quicker time as we actually had this in the past. And I'm very convinced that we at the Technical Committee 79 actually can achieve this within the next 1.5 to 2 years. Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Marcus. One last question for the three panelists, and one remark for Mark Ryder. There's a question in the chat that I think you could best answer. If you could name the two inspectorates that you mentioned during your presentation, if you could answer that in the chat, then
yes, I will do. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, then for the three panelists, you're coming from three different countries, having in place different approaches for the enforcement of European and national standards for INHAS in their local markets. Do you measure somehow the efficiency of these approaches, either quantitatively or qualitatively? And if so, which result do you see? Reduced intrusion attempts, reduction in losses, reduction in false alarms. Well, could you give an answer for your specific country? And I would like to start with you, Jan.
I think it's a terrific question. To be very honest with you, I don't know what our KPIs are. Maybe somebody else, Nicholas, you may know more on what type of KPIs we have to measure the effectiveness. But to the best of my knowledge, there aren't any that I know of.
Okay. Diego?
We don't have that information either. So I think that maybe the manufacturers that used to work before the certification became mandatory, who can also provide more information about this. What we receive from the police is that they want the product certified.
Right.
Mark, the same answer for you, or?
Sorry, I was typing away in the chat at the time, but I think the main KPIs from our perspective around the standards are with the actual installation companies in the UK market. So as I said, we've got a standard for management of false alarms, for example. And obviously the police also monitor false alarms with their professional security installation companies as well. And of course, as I said, we have the two inspectorates, the NSI and SSAIB, which I put in the chat, which actually audit the installers as well, with a number of, if you like, check boxes they have to do on installation to make sure it complies with all the standards.
Okay, thank you. And with that, our webinar comes to an end. I want to thank our presenters for the job they did. Thank you, Peter, Marcus, Oscar, Nicholas, as well as our panelists, John, Mark, and Diego. And thank you, audience, for attending this webinar. The webinar will be online as of Monday morning. But if you have any questions or feel like joining our EURalarm community, please reach out to us via our website. If you want to stay up to date with the developments in our industry, join our LinkedIn page that you don't see on the slide, but when you type in your alarm when you're on LinkedIn, you will definitely end up at our page, and we hope to see you again during one of our next webinars. For now, I would like to say thank you very much and have a wonderful evening.